What are you supposed to say when your client looks at you and says, I think the market's going to crash. I'm going to go ahead and wait till then. What's happening? J.C Agajanian here, broker associate with Whissel Realty at eXp, bringing you the breakdown of the Monday morning mastermind as we do every week. And today we've got three great topics we're going to cover. First of all, subject to financing or sub 2. Are you aware of it? Do you know how it works? How can it benefit you and your business? The next topic we're going to cover is your conversion rate. What are some great strategies to help you increase your conversion rate? Finally, we're going to get to that client who's waiting for the crash and how best to respond to them. So let's dig straight in. So the first topic we're going to hit today is subject to financing. What is it? How does it work? You may have heard of it, but let's get into the details. The basic concept is the seller is going to leave their current financing, their mortgage with a lender in place. They're going to take some portion or amount of down payment money, and then they're going to receive those payments from the buyer to not only cover that payment, but also additional income, so they have passive income coming in over a specific period of time. Subject to financing is great for the buyer because they can essentially use the seller's lower interest loan as theirs now. The seller benefits because they have a new stream of revenue coming in the form of payments from the buyer, and they took a chunk of money when the deal closed. It's a great win for both parties. One concern that people bring up regularly is called the due on sale clause, because technically a mortgage lender has the right to call a note due if the title transfers to a new owner. It's unlikely and it's rare, but it is technically allowable for the lender to do something like this. The important thing is to use a servicing company when you do something like this. So this way, you've got a title company actually making these payments for that mortgage going forward, not an individual, and that is going to be in the form of a land trust. So any owner can put their property into a land trust or any other sort of trust, and they can have a service company making that payment for them, reducing the amount of any red flags or tip-offs to the lenders that the title has actually changed. So bringing up some concerns and hopefully addressing them for you. What are we looking for when we're trying to find a subject to deal for ourselves or for our clients? Well, there's a couple different things that would present good opportunities. One of them is an overpriced listing. If there's property that is sitting on the market and it's not selling, you might have a good opportunity to pitch the sub 2 financing to that agent and or seller directly. Of course, there's plenty of explaining and coaching that needs to be done with a scenario like this, but if you can get someone with an open mind, you can explain to them that it is truly a win-win for both parties and you may have a deal in your hands. Another way to identify someone who could be a good candidate for a sub 2 deal is when they really don't have a lot of net after expenses to close. Worst case scenario, they may even have to come in to escrow with money to close this deal. So this is probably more of a scenario where you're working directly with the seller and you're doing the net sheets and you realize it's gonna be tight. Maybe they could put some money into the property in order to get up to breaking even, or maybe they have to do some prep and it's just money they don't know they're gonna get back. If it's that close of a deal, a subject to sale could be ideal for that particular seller. The certainty of knowing what they're gonna get instead of the uncertainty of knowing what the market will bear proves highly attractive to people in the scenario, and there's a good chance that they could love the concept of a subject to sale and forget about the rest of the hassle, the concern, and the uncertainty of putting it on the market and hoping someone's willing to pay what they need them to in order to clear that debt. Another perk for these sellers is that we actually have the opportunity to absorb a lot of their closing costs through a subject to sale by just accounting for those fees in the offering price and showing it to them as just a no cost, no fee deal that will help them exit the situation they're in. There's a lot more detail to this, and there are actually some real estate coaches out there teaching courses and charging a lot of money for education on this, but it can be done if you find yourself with the right mentor, and if you really want to, this could be a great way to add investment property to your own portfolio or add more deals to your bottom line in your production. Another benefit of using the servicing company to make these payments is for the potential cases where the seller who's going to be accepting these payments and leaving that current loan in place may want to go and buy another property in the near future, But they have concerns about the current loan being counted against them as a debt and killing their debt to income ratios. So the servicing company can come as an intermediary and explain that that is not truly their debt, opening up the opportunity for that seller to go ahead and buy again in the future. Building trust throughout this process is huge because the seller has to believe in your plan and your ability to execute on that plan. And they need to know your intentions are genuine and you won't have any issues keeping the loan current and keeping their payments coming in the near future. Moving on from sub-2 deals to increasing your conversion rates. Now, the question was raised by someone primarily focusing on Zillow portal leads, but the most of this conversation will apply to just about any lead. First, we need to realize that any little increase in your conversion rate is going to mean a lot of an increase to your bottom line. Believe it or not, only a 0.2 increase in your conversion rate can increase your actual sales figures as much as 25%. So this stuff is really important. So let's get a little more specific on some of the fine-tuning things. For example, the process. Every little detail of this step needs to be minded and paid attention to because that's all important. So one example is from the setting the appointment phase to actually meeting the appointment phase. Something as small as sending a calendar invitation to that person you're going to meet soon can increase your show rates dramatically. It's a small step, but if you apply it to your process every single time, it can make a big difference overall. This is just one small example of how obsessing over the process of how you do things at every step along the way can amount to a significant difference in your actual production for the year. We need to track things. We need to track as many different things as is realistic and possible in your daily business. So another example of tracking might be, well, how many showings or initial meetings have resulted in follow-up showings after that? If we are meeting people and they don't want to go out for a second date, we might be doing something wrong. We need to have those second dates happen with regularity, so we need to examine what we're doing in that first meeting that may or may not lead to another. Another great tip, this is a small tweak in your process that can have significant difference in your actual show rates, and more importantly, building rapport, is to simply use the coffee meeting for an initial showing, or any showing for that matter, but specifically for an initial consult or a first-time showing. Hey, I got to the area a little bit early. I'm gonna be stopping at Starbucks. What can I get you? Right? We're not asking, is there anything I can get you? Do you want anything? It's not a yes or no question. It's what can I get you? They are highly more likely to accept your offer. And then that is beginning the process with the feeling of reciprocity when you get there and you've already begun that rapport building process before you even meet the client for the first time. We really need to take that initial showing as an opportunity to build as much trust as possible. When you walk through and spend as much time expressing concern about the property or pointing out issues that you may want to raise to a home inspector if and when they do move forward with an offer, they're not going to feel like you're just there to push a property on them or pull them towards the sale of a home. They're going to have a higher level of trust if you're pointing out as many things that could be potential concerns as they are that are great selling points about that home. Just be honest and point out what you see as if it were your friend or a sibling of yours. We always need to be thinking about how we can wow our clients too, especially with that first meeting. The surprise and delight concept is huge. So one way to do that is if they seem serious, or even if they don't, what about if you just do a little bit of homework ahead of time and bring a complete CMA on the property that they're looking at so that if they like it and they ask you what you think about price, you don't have to say, well, I don't really know. I haven't looked at comps yet. Let me take a look at that when I get back to the office. You can say, it's interesting you asked. I actually thought you might like this place. I actually created a complete report for you. And this tells us that, X, Y, and Z, their numbers are right on. They're off by a little bit. They're actually underpriced and it's a really good deal. Whatever the case may be, you're now able to speak to the positives and negatives of the property and speak fairly about the price because of the report you've created. This is going to be quite impressive for any buyer that you meet for the first time. And you're going to show them that you're a professional, that you really know what you're doing. More importantly, that you've taken the time to do a little bit of work for them on their behalf and you hadn't even met them yet. This is going to be a big wow for that client. While you're there, we are not just looking to find out, what sort of square footage and bed bath count and what general area we're looking for. We are trying to take this time to learn everything we possibly can about them and what's going on in their lives, their family, their whys. Why are they doing this in the first place? What is motivating them to do this extremely uncomfortable thing of selling their home and buying a new one, or getting rid of their rental and buying a home? Nobody likes moving, but there's usually something that is greater than the dislike for moving, pushing them towards a sale. We need to know what that is so that we can help them accomplish their goal, and if they get off track, remind them of that goal when the time is right. Of course, after we have gained their trust and we've explained that we're professionals, we really have the right now to go through an actual buyer consultation, a presentation, explain with a consultative viewpoint how things work, how we go about things in our company that is different than most, and what we're going to do to help them cross that finish line with as little stress and hassle as possible. Of course, after that, we need to move the conversation towards financing. If possible, make a live introduction with the lender right then and there. If not, warm them up with an introduction so that we can find out sooner than later exactly where these people lie, how capable or incapable they are of buying a home in the price range that we've just looked at, and of course, keep them moving down the funnel that we're on. When talking about conversion, we've got to remember our database is hugely important. If it is not clean, organized, and staged properly, it will be overwhelming to try and get any sort of conversion out of this database. Hundreds, if not thousands of people are impossible to convert. So what we should do is keep it tight. Take the time to go through your database. If people have made it clear they're never going to do anything or they've left town, archive them and move on. The goal should be to have a top 20, if you will, or something similar, so that you know who you should put your attention on, who you should focus on, who you should give this meaningful conversations and frequently reach out to, because we cannot do it for everyone. So we've got to rely on our database, we've got to use our tools and just focus on the people that are most likely to transact in the near future. And if we're having conversations with some of them and maybe one of them that seems like they ought to be moving forward or somehow stuck, then let's figure out what sort of meaningful conversation we can have with them to unstick them and help them to keep moving forward. Because typically just one probing conversation where we're actually taking the time to really learn what they're thinking, where they're coming from, what issue may be giving them pause. Frequently there's something that we can help them understand that would get them off the fence back on the track to moving forward, as opposed to not staying in touch with them or just figuring that they've got a good reason and they're not doing anything. A great way to help your conversion is to incorporate a trial close. So actually, in the moment, when you're setting the appointment to meet with this person tomorrow or a couple days from now, explain a few of the benefits of meeting with yourself and your team. You don't need to go through your entire value proposition, but just explain some of the benefits, explain what some of the next steps typically are, and ask if there's any reason we wouldn't be moving forward to some of those next steps if they like everything they hear when they get together with you at that meeting. If you hear anything but, no, if all sounds well, we're excited to get the process started and move forward, then you need to take a moment and figure out what it is that is giving them pause and be prepared to address that when you get together. It's a little bit of a tip, and it'll help you know how to cater that meeting towards them when you do meet. And if there's no objection there, then you know that you just need to show up, do your job well, present what you've got, and plan on moving forward down the road. In the end, every appointment needs to end with something important. Paperwork signed, a contract, either a listing agreement or a buyer-broker agreement, or another appointment set to go see more property or whatever the next step may be. Or finally, they could just decide they're not going to do anything at all. And that's fine. If that's their decision, we can go ahead and not put our focus, energy, and attention into them and direct it towards someone else who is likely to have a transaction close in the near future. Moving on to our final topic today, dealing with clients that are waiting for the crash. We have had plenty of these conversations over the previous years. Frankly, I've been hearing people say this for probably 5 or 6 years. And the big crash that we got turned out to be a correction that didn't last very long, and now we're back on the upswing again. So how do we deal with this? You and I know that the chance of a housing crash in the near future is slim to none, but so many buyers out there don't realize that, and all they have is their recency bias, if they're old enough to remember what happened from 2008 through 2014, and they think that may be coming again. How do we break it to them that it's not happening? Well, before we can truly comment on it, we have to actually build credibility. We have to explain to them that we know what we're talking about. We have either got lots of experience for some of us, or we've got lots of education for others, or we've got an amazing team to rely on. Whatever fits for you, you can insert it there and explain why you are actually the authority on the subject, and something that they heard at the water cooler at work is not necessarily what's going to transpire in the near future. But we need to do a bit of poking and probing before we can really answer this. So, ask about the reason they were shopping in the first place. We kind of want to divert the attention away from that specific issue in order to get more trust, like I mentioned before, but also rapport. Help them know that you care. As the famous quote goes, nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So you've got to demonstrate that. You've got to ask the right questions, learn about who they are, what they're doing with their lives, and why they started this thing in the first place. The idea is to try and just peel back this onion little by little, looking for that true motivation under there, because they wouldn't be sitting with you if there wasn't some sort of motivation. This objection can be a simple question, asking for you to comment on it, or in some cases, it's a true objection that's got them stopping from moving forward until they feel comfortable that that's not the market we're going to encounter in our near future. One of our real jobs is to connect ourselves with that buyer and allow their fear to subside and just be there if and when they feel more comfortable moving forward. Because we can have all the education, we can have the explanation, we can guide them to the best of our ability, but frequently one objection handler is not going to do the trick to say, cool, we answered that question, let's move on. Sometimes it is a process, and we have to allow room for that client to work through that process while not fading away and being a distant memory, so that when they finally find it time to actually do something, they're looking for someone new. We need to figure out how to walk that balance of staying connected to them, but allowing them to work through and understand that it actually is a good time to move forward. It's not a fight. This is a dance that we are trying to move with them, not pushing or pulling against them, but just move with them through this process, understanding that everyone has their own things to work through in their mind and in their heart when it comes to agreeing with someone who is in authoritative position like yourself on something like the housing market. Once you are comfortable and they are too, you can feel free to poke holes in the thought process and actually get to the real point of, where did you hear that? Why do you think we're headed for a crash? What makes you believe that that's going to happen, as opposed to what we're actually seeing here with market times and inventory levels? You can give them all the data in the world. Don't forget to study Bar Habib. If we are able to truly internalize some of his points, his lessons, his explanations of why he does not see a housing crash coming, we will be better suited to handle these objections when they arise. Of course, assuming we've already done everything I just mentioned, we've earned trust, we've cemented ourselves as the authority on the topic, and we've shown them that we care. Now we can actually use the data, the tools, the information to point them towards reality, which is the market will likely continue moving up, and if we wait too long, it could simply move on without them. The opportunity is now, and we should go ahead and take action and move forward. That's it for today. We've covered sub-2 financing, we've covered increasing your conversion rates, and of course, we talked a little bit about those clients that are out there waiting for the market to crash. I hope you have found this helpful. As usual, I hope you find something that you can not just internalize mentally, but actually use in your business and implement on a regular basis to sell more homes. As always, send me a message if you'd like to chat right here, or if you've got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'll talk to you soon.